Hey, do you want to play Airsoft with a shield, but you're a gigachat and plastic shields aren't for you? Then make yourself a realistic Vant-vm shield. Of course, you could make it light, but it will be from some weak materials. And for Airsoft... it should be big, heavy and realistic. And you have to make it yourself. And of course it should be looks great, not like a piece of plywood with a tape. Bruh! And luckily you found this video where I'll show you how I made this shield. From the first purchases to the final fabric covering, I'll share what materials I used and the blueprints I followed. All the timecodes are available below. And here's the gameplay with the shield. And this is Arthur, channel about Airsoft. And today we will be making this guy. Okay, first, Vant-vm is a Russian ballistic shield which can hold really big ammunitions.
FAL next, right? Right arm of the free world?
Yeah.
M80's got to do something, man.
At least
Wow. Nothing.
Wow.
The good thing about building a Vant-vm is that there's a ton of information and photos about it online. It's one of the most popular ballistic shields in the world, and it's also quite popular in Airsoft.
of the shield loadout. So
You can find several blueprints for the Vant-vm online, but I settled on this one because it most closely resembles the shape of a real combat shield. I wasn't planning to make a light shield. First of all, because playing with a heavy shield is very different from playing with a light one. The weight adds realistic limitations. You can't run for long or walk hunched over. Second, playing with a heavy shield is almost like a workout at the gym. To make the shield similar to the real one in terms of width, I used 3 layers for the main part of the shield and 2 layers for the second part. The first and fifth layer are 1 cm thick yoga mats, followed by 1 cm of plywood and 2 9mm MDF layers, because they were cheaper. First, I drew out the shape of the main shield part on the plywood, and the 2 smaller parts on the MDF. For the corners, I used a piece of tape, but they turned out too sharp. I recommend using something rounder, like a plate. Then I cut them out. I drew, cut, and in the end, we have 1 large plate from plywood and 2 small ones. I cut out holes for the visor and bolts. I glued the large plate to small, one at the back using PVA glue. I used M8 bolts. After testing the fit, I sanded everything down. the result is the first part of the shield consists of a large and a small plate, and the second part consists only of the small one. Then I measured and cut a soft yoga mat to fit the shield. The mat should cover the entire back and front part of the shield, and it should exact slightly along the sides at the front to make it safer. This also helps protect the wood from chipping and heating. The BBs will simply bounce off the shield commercially without causing damage to the wood. Now let's talk about the Visor. I decided to make it out of wood, but that wasn't the best choice. After a few games it gets scratched and even chipped. It's not a big deal, because I made it pretty thick and it survived 2 games. I think it will last about 10 more games, but eventually I'll have to replace it. The ideal Visor would be metal, but I don't have the tools for that. I'll show you how to make it from wood, but I'm planning to make it from polycarbonate in future. I started with the back wall, then I added a plate and a couple of layers of wood. The front part should be around 35mm thick, and the back part is 50mm, and the middle part on my shield is 6mm. If you're using metal, you can make this part thinner, like about 1–2mm. First, I cut everything out. Then glued it together and fixed it with screws. For the wood I used PVA glue. After gluing, I pressed all the parts together and left them for a day. For the screws, since the thickness is small, I first drill holes that are about half the size of the screws to avoid damaging the thin wood. Don't assemble the front part just yet, because there will be glass in the middle. I assembled everything, leaving the front part unfinished. To connect the front and back parts, I specially made the front piece 5mm thicker to securely attach them. If you are working with metal, you can make the front piece 1cm thick. On the real Vant-vm shields, the back part is thinner than its blueprint, but I didn't want to make it too thin. However, if you want, you can make the back part around 1cm thinner on the top and bottom. Now time to paint. I used black spray paint with metallic effect. Sand, paint, sand again, paint. Finally, it's time to install the glass. I used 1cm thick polycarbonate. Typically, Airsoft goggles use around 4mm, but here I'm using a full 1cm thickness. I glued the Visor to the shield. I protected the glass with masking tape to avoid damaging it and paint again. and the visor is ready. Next I took a shovel handle, drew out the approximate dimensions and cut it. It didn't turn out perfect, but it still looks good. I wanted the handle to resemble the real one, so I made these brackets, around 5 cm in height, but better make them bigger, around 7 or 8 cm. After testing and fixing everything on the shield, I assembled the handles. Real combat shields often have leather wrapped around the handles. I wrapped mine in several layers of duct tape. It turned out looking nice and comfortable. Surprisingly, this construction easily supports the shield's weight. If done correctly, the handles will be strong and we can remove and attach them to the shield. Now that the shield is built, we begin covering it with fabric. I used 600D Cordura in olive color. It turned out to be both cheap and strong. You can also use other materials, like canvas. I covered the back of the shield first, scratching the fabric tightly and attaching it to the wood on the opposite side. I pulled the corners as tightly as possible, and it ended up looking really nice.
Про то, что телефон звонил, хотел, чтобы я встал, оделся и пошел, а точнее побежал, но только я его послал, сказал, что болен и устал, и эту ночь не спал. Я жду ответа, больше надежд нету.
On the front, there's usually a bright element, like a red or yellow Velcro rectangle. You can attach it with staples, glue, or like I did, take it to the workshop to have it sewn on. In the same workshop I made a special part to attach the apron to the shield. I used cordura and Velcro. I made this piece about 11 cm long on each side and 3 cm wide. I recommend making it longer to give the apron more movement. After all the parts are assembled, it's time to attach the apron, hook and hand straps. I made the apron from soft yoga mat and glued it with super glue. Not ideal, but okay. The hook I bought online and attached to the shield. Bolt and screw. Now the shield can be attached to a bulletproof vest or a special system to distribute its weight over the entire body. If you add another special part on top, you can completely release it and use your hands to reload the weapon, for example. To make the top part, I just took a flight cam and fasteners. Scaled everything with super glue. I attach one part to the shield and the second to the body armor and connect them. For the bottom part I just took a gun belt and attached a carabiner to the bottom, and attached the belt itself to the body armor. Not perfect, but it will do. Now you can wear the shield for longer than a couple of minutes. For the hand straps I used strong 5 cm tape with Velcro and add special regulators. This is the kind of tape that is used on backpacks, about 60 mm each. I attach everything to the shield with screws, which I then painted. I attach the Velcro to the tape with paper clips, but this is bad method, so I then re-glued some of it with super glue. This allows us to put our hand through and adjust the length to fit the shield so that we can hold it with one hand and manipulate it better. Everything is assembled and now the shield is ready for action. For future upgrades, you can add extra elements like a steel plate, light or molly system for attaching pouches directly to the shield. As the cherry on top of the cake, I decided to add the manufacturer's logo and the serial number to make the shield looks even more like the real one. I found low quality images and spent 30 minutes working on them. printed and glued to the shield. Link to the file with logos down. Mwah! Perfect! Now we have a realistic replica of the Vant-vm Russian shield, which weighs about 11 kilograms. Of course, if you use a lot of steel, for example steel visor, steel handle and steel plates, you can make it heavier, but for Airsoft this weight is perfect. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and now I'm off to the gym with my new shield.